Hello, my name is Amanda Hinterly, and today I'm going to be showing you how to make these earrings, Never Trust the Living, with my P2 laser by xTool. Let's get started. For this project, you're going to need your earring hardware. Today I've got some jump rings and some ear wires. And then you're going to need some pliers for assembly. Some black acrylic. Today I'm going to be using some scrap pieces. You can see that I do have these paper masks, but I'm actually going to do two processes. I'm going to do one with a mask and one without a mask to show you the difference in those two processes. And then you're going to need some acrylic markers. I like to use Posca. Today I will be using white and fluorescent yellow. You're going to need some kind of either paper towel or reusable cloth and some water to clean up a little bit. And then also a final protective clear coat. I like to use frog juice for that. All right, the file that I'm using today is one that I purchased on Etsy. What I really like about this file is that it was pretty much already ready to go. There wasn't any major editing involved. I just loaded it into the software and duplicated it for how many times I need it. So I'm going to come down to this layers panel and I'm going to select purple, which is my engrave layer. This is everything that's going to be paint filled later. I've got my power set to 17%. My speed is set to 160. This is going to be one pass, and I've got 100 lines per centimeter. And then the black layer is going to be the cut layer. I've got that set to 42% on the power, and it's 12 for the speed, and again, one pass for that. Your laser could be slightly different, so please make sure you test out these settings and adjust as needed for your own laser. I'm going to go ahead and show my background and use my close shot camera to make sure that the placement is good on all four of these. You can see the black acrylic can sometimes be a little bit challenging to differentiate where the different lines are. I kind of like using the honeycomb because I can see that edge of the acrylic versus the honeycomb a lot better. You can see both edges here, and if I just hover over my image, it highlights it to a different color, and I can see it's where I need it to be. And then I go and I kind of center the camera over each item just to make sure everything has a nice clean placement. The ones that have the paper mask are going to be a lot easier to see. That is one benefit of using a paper mask when you're working with black acrylic. And then once I'm sure all of my placements are good and where I want them to be, I grab this aim measure tool, especially because I am working with scraps. I want to make sure that I'm actually placing my measurement over the material. It's not quite like when you're working with a whole sheet and you can just do the quick measure. I like to be a little bit more precise when I'm working in this kind of setting. All right, we are now ready to go to process, and this will estimate our time frame to be 7 minutes and 32 seconds to engrave and cut all four of our tombstones. Okay, real quick before I take these out to clean them up, I wanted to show you the difference initially in using a mask and not using a mask. You can see that inside the laser itself, not using a mask, it looks quite a bit messier than when you use a mask on your acrylic. But there's another difference between these two that I will show you here in a few moments after I get them cleaned up. Now that I've taken these out and cleaned them up, you can kind of see a little bit better what the difference is as far as the engraving goes between using a mask and not using the mask. I personally prefer to not use the mask when I'm going to engrave for a paint fill because it gives a much cleaner look in the end The engraving is not full of any kind of leftover residue, and it just looks really nice. This one that has the paper mask, it's going to have some benefits when it comes to the paint fill here in a few minutes, but when I kind of move it in the light, you can kind of see where this shininess is, especially up in the skull, where I couldn't quite get all of that residue from that adhesive for the paper backing. It's still there a little bit, and even though I've cleaned it, it just won't come out 100%. And that really bothers me. Even though you can paint right over that, I just don't like that part of paper masking, so I tend to avoid this process. But I wanted to do both so you could see the difference between these two. Now that it's time to paint our designs, I'm going to start with white. Make sure that you shake your marker before you start using it to mix everything together. I'm going to be painting all 4 of the skulls and the sandworms white. And all I'm going to do is just kind of come in and fill that whole space. With acrylic, when you're doing the paint fill like this, you don't really have to worry about staying in the lines necessarily, because where you haven't engraved and the acrylic is still really smooth, all of this paint is going to clean right off of it later. So you can feel free to be a little bit messy on this part. Next, we're going to come in with the fluorescent yellow, and I'm going to do all of the text in this color. Now that we have all of those painted, I'm actually going to go back through and do a second coat of paint just to help make those colors be a little bit more opaque. Once I've done 2 coats of paint, I let them rest for at least 5 to 10 minutes, preferably overnight if you have the time to do so, to allow that paint to dry properly. After the paints have dried, it's time to peel off the masks if you have a paper mask on your project, or clean off the excess paint on anything that's not masked. So we'll go through both of those processes here now. All right, with the ones that don't have the mask, I'm just going to go through with a cloth and kind of use my finger to help with wiping off all the extra paint here. Okay, now that I've cleaned up the excess paint from the one that had no mask on it, and then I've removed the paper mask on this other one here on the right, you can kind of see the difference in these 2 processes and how it turns out. Once you've done this cleanup, you can easily go back and add more paint fill in and clean up again if you need to. On this one with the mask, honestly, I would go back and do that again, just do the paint fill, which kind of defeats the purpose of having the mask in the first place. A big reason why I don't really go that route. It's just not as clean and crisp, and I just am not super happy with how this one turns out, and that's why I tend to avoid the paper mask. But I know plenty of people have lots of success with that. I personally just prefer to go without the mask and do a little bit of cleanup and get this nice clean image in the end. So the next and final step here before we do assembly is going to be to put our protective coat on here. That's just a clear finish, and I will take care of that, and then we'll come back for assembly. Now that I have my clear protective coat on here and it is dried, the last and final step is to assemble the earrings. And I'm just going to slip a jump ring into here and then add my hook on. Make sure when you're adding your hook that you face it in the right direction so it doesn't hang backwards. And there we have 2 Never Trust the Living earrings. I really love how easy it is to make this project with my P2. I can take a really simple sheet of acrylic and make anything fun for the holidays or any kind of party, or even with any kind of outfit that I have that I want to match. So I hope you enjoy this project.